There are towns in America that disappear quietly. The factory closes, the jobs leave, the kids move away. And then there's Centralia, Pennsylvania, a town that didn't collapse because of economics or war or a natural disaster. Centralia disappeared because of a trash fire. A routine landfill burn in May of 1962 ignited an underground coal seam, and more than 60 years later, that fire is still burning beneath what remains of the town. This isn't a legend, this isn't folklore, it's one of the longest burning underground mine fires in American history, and it reshaped that entire community. Tonight, we're opening up the archives on Centralia, how it began, how it burned, and why it still hasn't stopped. A coal town is born. Centralia was founded in 1866 in Columbia County, Pennsylvania, in the heart of the anthracite coal region. Anthracite coal is different from the softer bituminous coal found in other parts of the country. It burns hotter and cleaner. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it was highly valuable for heating homes and for fueling industry all throughout the Northeast. The town was built specifically to support the mining operations there. Like many coal towns, it grew rapidly. Rail lines connected the mines to larger markets. Breakers, large coal processing structures, dominated the landscape. Men descended daily into shafts carved deep into the earth. By the early 1900s, Centralia had several churches, hotels, saloons, general stores, a theater, even its own newspaper. At its peak around 1890 to 1920, the population hovered near 2,700 to 3,000 residents. Coal shaped everything there. Wages, politics, family life, labor disputes. Centralia wasn't untouched by violence either. In 1868, a mine superintendent named Alexander Ray was murdered, an event later tied to the secretive Molly Maguires, a group associated with labor unrest in the coal region. So even in its early history, Centralia still had tension bubbling beneath the surface, both literally and figuratively. Mining eventually declined in the mid-20th century, but abandoned mine tunnels remained, stretching in complex networks beneath the town. And that underground infrastructure would matter more than anybody realized. May 1962, the fire begins. On May 27, 1962, as part of preparations for Memorial Day, the Centralia Borough Council authorized the burning of trash in the town landfill. The landfill was located in a former strip mining pit just outside of town. Open trash burning was a common practice in small towns back then. The fire department set the landfill ablaze. According to later investigations, there were open mine shafts and unsealed openings in the pit area. Though the landfill fire appeared to be extinguished, it likely ignited exposed coal seams connected to abandoned underground mine tunnels. Within days, residents noticed smoke seeping from the ground. Initial attempts were made to extinguish the fire by digging out burning material and flooding the area. But by the summer of 1962, it was clear that the fire had moved underground. And underground coal fires are extraordinarily difficult to stop. Once coal ignites in an oxygen-rich environment within a network of tunnels, it could travel slowly along seams fed continuously by fuel. The Centralia fire began spreading beneath the town. Early attempts to stop it. Throughout the 1960s, several efforts were made to extinguish the fire. Engineers attempted to excavate burning areas, dig trenches to isolate the fire, pump water and slurry into mine shafts, and seal openings. All of these efforts failed. One major issue was funding. Initial state funds ran out. The fire temporarily appeared contained, only to then resurface elsewhere later on. The abandoned mine network beneath Centralia wasn't well mapped. Decades of mining had left a labyrinth of tunnels there, and the fire followed these pathways unpredictably. By the late 1960s, carbon monoxide began appearing in homes. In 1979, a gas station owner, checking his underground fuel tanks, found gasoline temperatures unusually high, reportedly over 170 degrees. The ground was warming. The fire wasn't just spreading, it was active beneath populated areas. 1981, the Sinkhole. On Valentine's Day, February 14, 1981, 12-year-old Todd Dombrowski was playing in his grandmother's backyard when the ground suddenly collapsed beneath him. A sinkhole, approximately 4 feet wide and estimated at 100 to 150 feet deep, opened into a hot gas-filled cavern. His cousin grabbed him just in time. The hole emitted deadly carbon monoxide. This event became national news. Suddenly, Centralia wasn't just a curiosity, it was a safety hazard. Federal attention began to intensify. Federal relocation and buyouts. In 1983, the U.S. Congress allocated approximately $42 million for relocation efforts. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania began buying homes and relocating residents. Residents were offered compensation for their properties, but this wasn't universally welcomed. Some residents believed that the risk was being overstated. Others felt that their property values were being undervalued. Some simply refused to leave. Over the next decade, homes began to be condemned. Structures began to be demolished. Streets were taken off of maps, and the population steadily declined. By 1990, the population had dropped from over 1,000 in 1980 to fewer than 100. In 1992, the state invoked eminent domain, formally condemning the remaining properties. Legal battles then ensued. In 2002, the U.S. Postal Service revoked Centralia's zip code, 17927. By the early 2000s, nearly all buildings were demolished, except for a handful of holdouts. In 2013, an agreement allowed remaining residents to live out their lives there, but their properties would revert to the state upon their deaths. As of recent counts, fewer than 10 residents remain. Route 61, a visible scar. One of the most visible consequences of the fire was a section of Pennsylvania Route 61. In the 1980s, the underground heat caused the highway to buckle and crack. Steam vented from fissures in the pavement. The state eventually rerouted traffic and abandoned the damaged stretch. The road became known as Graffiti Highway. Covered in spray paint, it became a strange tourist attraction. Photographers, urban explorers, curiosity seekers all flocked there. In 2020, the state covered the Graffiti Highway with dirt to deter trespassing, but images of it remain iconic. A modern road warped by an invisible underground fire. How long will it burn? Estimates suggest the fire could continue for another 100 to 250 years, depending on oxygen flow and available fuel. The fire is monitored but not actively fought. Why not? Because the cost to extinguish it would be astronomical, with no guarantee of success. Coal seam fires are notoriously persistent worldwide. We find them in China and India, even Pennsylvania. Centralia is simply one of the most famous in the United States. The other side of the story. But here's what gets lost in the spectacle. When former residents speak about Centralia, they don't lead with geology or even with the fire. They talk about the church festivals, Polish and Irish community traditions, Little League games, neighborhood familiarity. The Oddfellows Cemetery still stands. Several churches remain active just outside the town boundaries. Former residents still hold reunions. The identity persists, even when the infrastructure doesn't. Centralia is technically almost gone, but culturally it isn't. Because a town isn't just its buildings. It's far more than that. It's people, it's love, it's shared experiences with one another. The deeper lesson. Centralia wasn't destroyed by greed or disaster alone. It was undone by simple routine. It was a landfill cleanup, a decision made without fully understanding what lay beneath. There's something profoundly American in that. There's optimism, there's practicality, there's improvisation, and sometimes underestimation. The fire beneath Centralia is invisible to most visitors. The ground looks calm, there's grass growing there, the trees sway back and forth, but beneath it all there's a slow chemical reaction that continues. The coal oxidizes, the heat builds, the fuel feeds flames, there's a quiet burn. And that might be why Centralia endures in the American imagination. It's not dramatic flames and smokestacks. It's something slower than that. It's something more persistent, something like memory itself. The town itself may fade, but the story of it will never fade. Because Centralia reminds us, beneath all the ordinary places, there are layers. There's history, imagination, there's infrastructure, there's consequences, and sometimes there's fire. This has been Americana Archives, and we're just getting started. If you liked what you heard and want to hear even more of it, remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and hit the like button. And don't forget to comment below.